Hello and welcome to Focus, a program produced by the Department of Disaster Management, DDM. I'm your host, Fiona Alexander Smith, Information and Education Manager at the DDM. As you all know, we are in the Atlantic hurricane season, so in this edition, we will continue to discuss hurricane preparedness and planning. Preparing for hurricanes and tropical storms is essential for all of us, in our families and in our place of work. Being prepared and having a plan of action helps to minimize chaos during hurricane and tropical storm activity and in other stressful situations. Here to speak more about the need to prepare and the benefits of having a plan is someone who is knowledgeable about this and other aspects of the disaster management cycle, DDM's Planning and Preparedness Manager, Shenya Armstrong. The coordinator of the Effective Business Continuity Management Workshop at the H. Laverty Stout Community College, Dana Lewis Ambrose, is also here, and she will speak about the workshop in a few minutes. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. When we speak about preparedness, at the DDM, we tend to encourage businesses and families to have a plan. But first, I want to focus on the business sector and look at business continuity plans. Briefly explain, Shenya, please, what exactly is a business continuity plan and why is it so important?
Business continuity plan is a strategy that you would devise to cover those things that are outside of the norm that may happen to your organization. It is something that is covering the events that happen outside of your normal daily operations. Business continuity plans cover a range of situations, including the death of or the absence of key executives or managers. They cover crisis events. They also look at those events that threaten to shut down your business operations for extended periods of time. Business continuity plans are an essential part of any organization, and it is allowing those businesses to operate after an incident occurs. Consider a business continuity plan or a contingency plan as having a good plan B in the event of impact.
Right, and what are some of the elements that make up this plan?
Some of the key elements of a business continuity or contingency plan would be you want to identify the hazards or threats to your organization. You also want to document procedures for addressing those threats. You want to look at training and exercising staff. And you also want to look at the communications aspect. How do you communicate internally as well as externally outside of the organization?
Okay. How should businesses go about formulating this plan, and what is the DDM's role in terms of assisting businesses who wish to create such a plan?
To begin formulating your plan, you want to consider the following. You want to identify those hazards or threats to your organization. You want to look at developing a strategy to respond to those hazards or threats if they do occur. You also want to identify strategies that look at the seamless continuity of your organization should those hazards or threats occur. Contingency planning, it is a legal requirement according to the BVI, the Disaster Management Act of 2003, the Labor Code, as well as the Financial Services regulatory requirements. At the Department of Disaster Management, we offer a variety of tools and templates that are available on our website to help persons to design their plans. We also provide preparedness lectures to organizations. We would go in, visit, and speak with them about planning, looking at not just basic preparedness for the organization, but also looking and helping them to develop plans. We also review plans that come in. We visit organizations and participate or observe and evaluate their simulation exercises. And we have created a program that specifically targets businesses, which is our Business Emergency Response Team Training, that looks at identifying disaster management, introductory principles, damage assessment, basic first aid training, fire suppression, etc. So the Department of Disaster Management, we work with you and we provide some assistance to you to get you on your road to preparedness.
That's right. And as you mentioned, the website, for those listening, the website is bviddm.com. Now, some businesses might believe that just simply having a written plan is the only thing required when preparing for hazards such as hurricanes and other threats. But of course, we know that there is another component that goes hand in hand with having the actual written plan, and that is, of course, the testing of the plan. Why is testing so important, and how often should it be done?
Developing a plan and having it sit on a shelf is not a benefit to anyone. Like you mentioned, the plan should be tested. Plans should be developed in keeping with staff input, and they should be shared with all members of staff. It is important to test your plan so that you know what procedures work and what do not. And it also helps you to identify readily what are some of the kinks in the plan and some of the adjustments that we need to make.
How often should this test be done, though?
We advise persons to exercise your plan at least annually. This can be done in basic fire drills or desktop exercises in which you sit down and you talk through a scenario that may occur. And you may also want to look at updating your plan after an incident may have occurred within the organization.
Some businesses might believe whether or not they have a tested emergency plan or tested contingency plan in place is not important because whether it wouldn't stop a hurricane or other hazard from impacting them. What advice would you have to these businesses with that view?
Yes, I agree. Having a plan in place does not stop the hazard from occurring, but it does help you to recover quickly as well as to continue your business operations as seamlessly with little downtime as possible. And as I mentioned, having a contingency plan is like having a very good plan B.
Right. We'll take a break right now. We'll have more details on business continuity plans after this message. Businesses must be prepared to recover quickly from the impacts of tropical storms and hurricanes. A business continuity plan is beneficial to your business. Here's why. Your organization may be disrupted, but a business continuity plan will reduce the length of disruption to your business operations and services you provide. This also means it reduces the risk of significant financial loss. With a business continuity plan, you are able to recover critical information within a quick time span. Be hurricane smart and develop a business continuity plan. Remember, it only takes one. A message from the Department of Disaster Management.
The house was shaking. Then said the story here, babe. Crack, and the roof had gone.
Man, I was so scared, I nearly wet myself.
Only those who have lived it can truly understand the devastating fury of a hurricane's wind.
The house across the road just get up and roll over.
Hurricane force wind. It's a hazard. Hazards. Take control. Reduce your loss. You can hurricane-proof your home. For example, make your roof more wind-resistant by using screws instead of nails in its construction. Find out more about hurricane force winds and other hazards at your local disaster office.
Welcome back to Focus. Joining the discussion now is Dana Lewis-Ambrose, coordinator of the Effective Business Continuity Management Workshop, which will be implemented by the H. Lavity Stout Community College in conjunction with the Institute for Business Continuity. Thanks again for being here, Mrs. Ambrose. First of all, let's talk about the actual workshop itself. When was it first implemented, and what prompted the need for this type of workshop?
Okay, well, between 2011 and 2012, there was an opportunity for funding to be acquired to have this course introduced. And so the college successfully bidded and won the bid from the UNDP to institute this course. The reason for having this course would have been for the obvious reason, based on some of the discussion we've already had, in terms of ensuring that we had persons on the ground across various sectors who would have had knowledge and the ability to understand the whole concept of business continuity management and what it entails. And those persons would have been key persons throughout sectors within the BVI, so that in the event that there would have been some disaster of some sort, that they would have been the ones who could at least lead the way in terms of the entire territory being able to get a sense as to how do we get our systems back in order at a very minimum low downtime. So that would have been the motivation behind the entire project, and we are very grateful for the funding that we would have acquired, because while that funding would have expired for that first cohort, which was let me also add, which was actually done online, so the persons here would have been able to communicate with the necessary individuals overseas. So we used technology, and all of that I think was a plus, because it said that the H. Lavely South Community College has the capability to bring resources to the territory by using the technology. But since we've had that course, we've had at least 2 or 3 other cohorts. In 2013, we hosted a large contingent from the agency SEDIMA, which is the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency. And I do believe it was over 40 students who would have completed that course. And the idea was at that particular point to have persons from each territory across the region trained in that particular area. And so that was done in 2013, and then in 2015 we had another cohort which would have primarily focused on persons from within the BVI, within key sectors. We would have had key persons now from the financial services sector who would have participated in that course as well as law enforcement and the telecommunications companies. So we have covered a good set of persons within the territory, but, and I will say but here, because that, even though that is a good achievement, there's a lot more persons on the ground who really need to have this knowledge. And I'm happy to know that it is now a legal requirement for companies to have it. So that being said, it means that more companies or more individuals need to come forward and be trained in this particular area.
Right, and hopefully this discussion as well will motivate them to do that as well.
Yes.
Thanks for giving us that comprehensive background on the inception of the program and so forth. Now let's focus on the actual workshop this year itself.
Yes.
And just tell us, what can participants expect from the workshop itself, and when will the sessions be held?
Right. We have that workshop slated for the 15th to the 19th of August. At the H. Lavely South Community College. It's a comprehensive package which we are offering individuals. They get, of course, instructor who's face-to-face, who's right in front of them, who's interacting with them, as well as they get the materials. They get it in hard copy, they get it in soft copy. They also get the opportunity to take an exam at the end, which then certifies them as a certified continuity manager, which is a designation that they can now carry with them wherever they go within the organization they're presently in, or if they move on, they carry that designation. And of course, we at the college, it's a workshop. We give them a full package. They get the meals, they get pretty much everything. They just need to turn up and be in tune to whatever is being delivered to them. And I've seen the students do it participated in the course before. It is a very interactive course. And I don't see anyone who has left that course who has not felt that they have truly benefited from what was delivered, and that they now can go back to their actual organizations and start to implement. Of course, we know that when you come with knowledge, there may be some barriers or some blockages when persons come back with that knowledge. But I think overall, the fact that they have the knowledge, there are different ways that you can actually infiltrate whatever systems are presently existing in your organization. And I do think that more and more businesses, more and more entities, more and more organizations are seeing the need for this, because we just had the horrific situation in Orlando with that shooting. That business that was affected, that now has to find some way of getting back on track, as well as the businesses which may surround it, as well as the community overall. So I think that was a good example of what the need for this training in the community. Not to say that we anticipate that such situations will happen, but we never know.
Right.
And the world is much smaller than we think it is. We have technology, we have the web. We can communicate with persons who are miles away. That means, that being said, that means that the world is much smaller than we really think it is.
Yes, it certainly is. Can you tell us some of the topics that will be covered in the workshop itself?
Right. Well, business continuity management obviously would be the main principles of that would be taught. But coming out of that, there are also other elements that go hand in hand or are part of what that is. And so you can expect risk assessment to be dealt with. You can expect crisis management and crisis communications and all of that to be dealt with. There are the 5 principles that may govern business continuity planning, because there's planning and then there's management, and there's a slight difference between the two. And there are other elements, like, for example, the IT element. How do you get the IT element or the recovery of your systems or technology back in play? All of those things, and there's much more, but all of those things would encompass that course. And as I said, it is an intense 5 days. You will definitely become aware of things that we tend to take for granted, thinking that, well, that's not going to happen here, or that's not going to occur. It opens our eyes. It opens the eyes of the participants, and it makes them more cognizant of what may happen, and that they need to be thinking ahead of the game and have plans in place that can address all of those possible scenarios if they do come to fruition.
Right. I'm sure those in tune to this program would want to know, having heard all the details about the workshop, if there's a deadline for registration and whether or not a fee is required.
The regular deadline for the registration is the 15th of July. The reason being is because the instructor has to be able to make the necessary plans to come in and so on and so forth. And so the deadline is really the 15th of July. However, we have been gracious because we know this is a very important workshop, and we have introduced a $100 off early bird registration deadline, which is the 30th of June. So what we're trying to do is encourage persons to register by the end of June and save now. So we're not just encouraging you to register. We're saying to you, we're giving you an
Incentive.
Incentive, yes, that's the word I'm looking for, in order for them to register and be a part of this opportunity.
Right. Okay. Lots of information on business continuity plans, and that would have been shared by yourself and Miss Armstrong. I'm hoping that businesses are really motivated now, as I said before, to create such a plan. And while we are encouraging businesses to develop a business continuity plan as part of your preparations for emergencies and hazards such as hurricanes, we are also encouraging individuals to register for the Business Emergency Response Training, BERT. BERT is a program geared at building resilience within the business community. The training is designed to equip members of the business sector with the skills needed to be able to respond and cope with emergency situations which may arise. BERT has been adapted from the Community Emergency Response Team CERT training. And in fact, employees of Delta Petroleum were the first to benefit from the training in 2015. And since then, representatives from several businesses have benefited from the training. We'll now break for more information on BERT in this message. If an emergency arises at work, would you know how to respond, what to do, or where to go? Not knowing how to react when faced with an emergency at work can cause panic, chaos, and even loss of life. This is why Business Emergency Response Training, BERT, should be a required course for staff development. The Department of Disaster Management, DDM, encourages you to register for our 15-hour BERT course. Understanding the National Disaster Management System, evacuation planning, fire suppression, fire safety in the workplace, basic first aid and CPR, and introduction to damage assessment are some of the topics covered in the training. The training is facilitated by the DDM in collaboration with the BVI Red Cross and the Virgin Islands Fire and Rescue Service. Call 468-4200 for more information or to register for the BERT course. Register for $80 to gain skills to last a lifetime. Businesses must be prepared to recover quickly from the impacts of tropical storms and hurricanes. A business continuity plan is beneficial to your business. Here's why. Your organization may be disrupted, but a business continuity plan will reduce the length of disruption to your business operations and services you provide. This also means it reduces the risk of significant financial loss. With a business continuity plan, you are able to recover critical information within a quick time span. Be hurricane smart and develop a business continuity plan. Remember, it only takes one. A message from the Department of Disaster Management. Welcome back to Focus. We just spoke about the need for businesses to have a continuity plan in place. And we also want to encourage families to create an emergency or evacuation plan. Shania, back to you again. What should families include in their emergency plans?
I'm happy that you mentioned that, Fiona. Disaster planning is not just for businesses, it's for families and individuals too. And family emergency plans need not be a written document, but it can be conversations that become standard practice around family members. We advise that you meet with your family members, that you discuss how to prepare and respond to events if they occur, emergencies that happen where you live, learn, work, or play. Identify responsibilities of each family member in response to those emergencies. In the case that you're separated, plan what you're going to do, where you're going to meet. Identify 2 places immediately outside of your home for sudden emergencies such as fire, or outside of the neighborhood. If you're in the area and something happens and you're separated, you may want to identify an emergency contact that's outside of the area, as in overseas, because it may be easier to text or telephone someone outside of the country if local phone lines are down. Okay. If you have to evacuate, you need to decide early where you're going, what you're taking, and what you're going to do, how you're going to get there. So even look at exercising your evacuation routes at least twice a year. Get in the car, drive those routes, plot alternate routes in case those roads may be closed or impassable.
Right. Okay. So you pretty much mentioned going through a testing procedure at least once a year and so forth, and you also established that the families really don't have to go through a formal procedure to create a plan.
Correct.
Right. But if they do choose to do so, are there any requirements for creating a family emergency plan?
There are no formal procedures for families to create a plan, but there is information on our website and templates to help guide you through some of the questions that you need to ask, making sure that you have your emergency contact information listed. We advise that you keep emergency contact numbers on your person in your cell phone. They're very convenient and easy to do these days.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong and Mrs. Ambrose. It was a pleasure having you both on the program. Of course, for many of us, pets are considered a member of the family, so we must ensure that we make plans for them as well. Stay tuned for some tips to safeguard your pets during this season.
I heard about storm surge on TV, but didn't really know what it was.
I found the wipe test out. The sea swept away everything. All gone.
The waves were higher than the house.
The devastating force of a storm surge is awesome. Wave after wave. Tons and tons of water lashing and smashing down all before it. Storm surge. It's a hazard. Hazards. Take control. Reduce your loss. If you live alongside the seaside, sooner or later, storm surge, the big waves and high seas caused by a storm will threaten your property. Plan for it. Build for it. Maybe don't build there at all. Find out more about storm surge and other hazards at your local disaster office.
Water up to my belly, mattress floating, furniture floating, even the TV set floated for a while,
My sneakers were floating just like boats.
Floods. They can happen so suddenly. What can you do?
Listen, when I saw the portable toilet from the construction site up the road float by, and I realized that all that stuff was in the water.
Floods. Hazards. Take control. Reduce your loss. What can you do to help stop flooding? Keep drains and wells clean and unblocked. Find out lots more about floods and other hazards at your local disaster office.
Before we end this edition of Focus, please remember the following when it comes to protecting your pets this hurricane season. Emergency shelters cannot accept pets. If you have to leave your pet at home, leave him or her in a safe area inside the home with plenty food and water. As an added precaution, you can remove the toilet seat and lid and leave the bathroom door open so he or she can go in and drink. Place a sign outside the home in a visible area advising what pets are inside, where they are located, and a contact number where you can be reached. Ensure that identification tags are up to date and clearly fastened to your pet's collar. It is also a good idea to keep a current photo of your pet or pets. Never leave your pets chained outside. Thanks for tuning in to Focus. I hope the information shared will be helpful in guiding you through your preparedness and planning activities for this and every hurricane season. I am Fiona Alexander Smith, Information and Education Manager at the Department of Disaster Management, reminding you to be hurricane smart. Thanks for joining. Join me next time for another edition of Focus on CBN Television and on 90.9 FM.